The stage starts off with giant goblin heads that have protruding horns on both sides, protruding in and out on a regular timer. Of course, it's good to speed through this segment so that you don't get overwhelmed by these small the small goblins. But after that are the cloud platforms occupied by Kaminari Goros. Of course, the footage is sped up here because it's a little boring. Now in this segment, there are these birds named Pippies that will drop eggs which spawn smaller birds. They seem scary at first because it's a mass swarm of them, but if you have something that could pierce them like Metal Blade, Quickman, or heck, even Air Shooter, they become an easy resupply. Because Megaman 2 was very generous with its ammo pickups. A small checkpoint room and the return of the goblin heads past here, and some fan fiends showing up a little bit later in the room with some more pippies. Now, Airman himself is known to be a pretty hard boss to no damage because he fires a set of 3 air shooter storms, which will go up, you see the telegraph pattern, and then they push you back. It's pretty much like a bullet hell in a way, but the thing is, you can easily outdamage them. You just have to jump over a few and just mash the Mega Buster. Alright, this is where the run properly starts. A simple stage start that has 2 rooms that you need to climb up ladders and avoid tellies. But you do see me avoid all the tellies in the first room, and the second one I kind of bump into a few of them. Then there's a simple straight with a few mets. Still haven't needed to use a single air shooter shot, which you could use that if you want, but I'm just reserving it. The segment is sped up because it's pretty boring to watch. Another walk to the right where I'll use item 2 to jump over the blocky here because blockies can't be damaged by air shooter. Of course, past the blocky, more ladders, more mets, and birds from the last stage come back. Now this E-Tank is pretty easy to grab. You just jump down and then use item 2 here to jump back up. Of course you'll have enough ammo to be able to make the second jump to the further ladder, which if you do that, you get a free 1-up. Now the final stretch here is pretty easy. You could shoot the flyboys, or just do what I do and ignore them completely. Now Crashman is really simple. He moves around the room by walking, and every time you fire a lemon or any kind of attack, he will jump and fire a crash bomb directly at you, which this can be abused pretty easily if you're using air shooter. This stage is pretty easy. Just learn how to handle the ice physics by jumping and traverse the mazes. The crazy cannons can be a little weird to one-shot with air shooter, but most of the sniper joke walkers get dealt with in one shot by air shooter in this difficulty. Of course, I'm ignoring all the crash bomb rules, but one of them, since I want to reserve them all for Flashman. Past the maze and going the right way leads you to this area that's high up. Of course you have to do a little bit of platforming, but it's better than dealing with these Sniper Joe walkers. Of course, if you're successful, you get a free E-Tank and pretty much an easy way to Flashman. If you fail, deal with the walkers down below. You saw nothing. Now, Flashman seems hard, but his pattern's actually pretty simple. He jumps every time he walks into a wall, touches a ledge, or every time you fire a buster shot, but also every certain amount of time, he will stop in place and do his time stopper and fire a barrage of shots. Right now, supposedly the hardest of the original 8 here. Now for this stage, I'll just let the footage play for itself, so then you can just study it at your own pace. Metalman stage is filled with conveyor belts from the start all the way to the end. And of course, it's a pretty good indicator of how the stage is going to be, but it's also a good tutorial to the boss gimmick. Overall, the stage is pretty simple around and it's got 2 E-tanks in it, which is very generous. Of course, past the first set of conveyor belts are spiked crushers, or named as presses. A little bit past that are the moles, which are pretty much just a tunnel of little enemies that just get spammed all around. Pretty easy to take out. Another use of item 2 to grab a 1-up and onto the rooms below. Of course, there are pirate bots and need grey blockies here. Of course, you want to aim for the gear and not the clown, because if you aim for the clown, the gear still moves. But if you aim for the gear, the clown just falls down. Of course, the little Roomba robots that can be taken out with only a certain few weapons. Then, the boss door. Of course, if you remember Metalman's stage gimmick, this fight should be a lot easier for you. Of course, just watch out for where Metalman throws his metal blades. Of course, to get close, he'll jump to the other side and fire a barrage. Every time you attack, he'll also jump up and fire a barrage. We start off by jumping from multiple platforms while dealing with a few Kerogs and those small froggies. Quickman puts them away pretty easily, but they're also immune to air shear. Past them are falling platforms that use the same spray as the crash bomb walls. Of course, if you jump off these falling platforms fast enough, they technically don't fall at all. Once that area is cleared, we descend into the waters below with some Tanashi in the way. Eating them causes them to drop their shell and move away faster, but also decreasing their hitbox size by a bit. So you can either wait them out, so then you don't have to waste any ammo, or shoot them to your heart's content. Anko, the big anglerfish enemy, is only vulnerable by the hanging lights, while constantly spawning shrinks, just like how the Kerogs did. Of course, Metalblade realizes this mini-boss, because you can easily aim it, but I use Quick Rim right here. A small precise maze of spikes and elevation with a few jellyfish robots named M445, descending from the ceiling. They go out in one hit, so they are no threat. Last, the second Anko is 2 Kerogs and a platforming segment with crabs named Claw. They fall down randomly and be pretty annoying, so I use Time Stopper to bypass most of the segment. Of course, my timing could be better. Bubbleman is similar to Iceman. Pattern-wise, he'll fire a few bouncing bubble leads before swimming up for a bit and then swimming down, having the ability to occasionally fire buster shots right toward you. Quickman can do pretty alright dash, but his primary weakness is Metal Blade. This stage is a step up from the previous ones. Of course, the start is pretty fine, just some flyboys from Crashman's stage, tellies and platforming over pillars over lava, which one simple mess up could cause you to restart the stage, so keep a cool head from the last stage. Of course, there are some Yoku blocks in this stage, but I skipped the first part by using item 3. Now, this particular part, I'll just let it play out for itself. Now that Toad Swarm is dealt with, now comes the hardest part of the stage. Fun. Oh no. So you must pass some of the Yoku block segment before using item 2 to safely get across. Rest assured, once you get past there, the rest of the stage is easy. Heatman is a boss who throws fiery pillars and dashes at you the moment he takes any hit of damage. Of course, while ignited, he is completely invincible, but he's very easy to jump with. Just be ready to dodge all the attacks he has. Marathon of a Star. A ton of battles and Roberts are in this long stretch. You can decide to sprint through it all like I did, or decide to pick off everything one at a time. The Roberts are immune to air shooter though, so you'll need something else for them. Two sets of ladders There's downward, and they'll lead to the friendlier enemy bosses that are immune to air shooter and crash bomb. I found that out the hard way. Thing is, you can skip them by using a really well-timed time stopper and just make sure you move really quickly through these segments, as it only lasts for a good while. Now there's a ladder that goes up with 2 battles and another ladder that leads to a treetop-like area with monkings, who are immune to air shooter. What is with the enemies that are immune to air shooter in this stage? And jump when the player is close, alongside pippies that can be farmed just like usual. Then some descents away. Now this final part has atomic chickens, or they're named as Kiku in Japan. They have 10 HP and move pretty quickly, but they jump over you the moment you're like right in front of them, so you technically don't even have to do anything. You can just walk up to them, stop, and they'll jump over you. It's pretty easy. Now Woodman himself is another boss that's a little annoying to dodge due to his leaf rain. But of course, nail him with his weaknesses when his leaf shield is down.
Yep. Really what I had on my phone thing.
Wow.
Where the shit got a hard base, you can press that shit out.
Man, I'm doing voiceovers, motherfucker. I'm on Airman stage. I was about to call Airman.
That shit's peak, is it not?
Yeah, it is big, but I was getting close to calling Airman a bitch.